Hi everybody, it's Mr. Taylor here with another short story from my Hans Christian Andersen book. And this story is called The Princess and the Pea. Once upon a time there was a young prince. He lived in a palace with his father and mother, who were the king and queen. The king and the queen thought that the prince should marry a princess and have a palace and a family of his own. The prince went all over the world. He went from one place to another, hunting a real princess to be his wife. He saw many beautiful princesses, but somehow not one of them seemed to him a real princess, and he came home alone. "I could not be sure that they were real princesses," he said to his mother, to the queen. "The princess that I marry will one day be the queen, and I want to be sure that she is gentle and fine, the way a queen should be." The queen said, "You are right, my son. I, too, want to be sure you marry a real princess. We will wait a little longer. I am sure a real princess will be found soon." One night, a big storm came down from the mountains. It grew very dark, and the servants drew the curtains over the windows of the palace. They lighted big fires in the fireplaces to keep the rooms nice and warm. The prince sat by the fire and dreamed about the real princess he hoped someday to find. Outside, the weather was so bad that the palace guards could not keep warm. They pulled their big coats up around their ears and stood as close to the walls as they could to get away from the storm. The wind and rain made so much noise that they could not see or hear a thing. And that is how it happened that someone came to the palace door without being stopped by the guards. The prince, who was sitting by the fire, thought he heard a knock on the great doors of the palace. So he got up, walked up to the doors of the palace, and opened them. In came a beautiful young girl, blown by the wind and the rain. She had on only thin, torn clothing. She was wet to the skin. Her long, dark hair hung down in wet strings, and she shook with cold. But still, she was the most beautiful girl the prince had ever seen. The prince shut the heavy doors and took the poor, cold girl over to the fire. "Who are you?" he asked kindly, "and why have you come here in this stormy night?" "I am a princess, sir," she said. "I am lost, and I would like to stay here tonight." The prince could hardly believe it. Could this ragged little girl be a princess? It didn't seem as though it could be true, but still she was the most beautiful in her torn, wet dress than any of the other princesses had been in their best silk dresses. Just then his mother, the queen, came into the room. He told the queen that the storm had blown a princess to their palace. "She seems to me to be the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. If we could only be sure that she really is a princess, I would like to have her for my wife." Then the queen said, "By tomorrow morning, we will know whether or not she is a real princess." So the queen called the servants, and they led the tired little princess away. They bathed her in warm water until she stopped shaking from the cold. They washed and brushed her long, soft hair until it shone in the light. She was given a silk nightdress and then led to a bed that the queen had made for her. The queen had taken a small, dry pea and put it on the bed. Then she had the servants put 20 of the softest feather beds on top of it. The bed was so high that the princess had to have a ladder to get into it. It was so soft that she sank down nearly out of sight when she lay on the bed. The servants covered her with a soft blanket and left her there for the night. When morning came, the queen went into the bedroom to see how the princess had slept. She found her sitting up in the bed, looking white and tired and not rested at all. "How did you sleep, my child?" asked the queen. "Oh," said the girl, "I just could not sleep at all. There seemed to be something small and hard under the feather beds. I am sorry I cannot say that I slept well after you were so kind to me, but it is true. This morning I am black and blue all over, and I did not rest at all." Well, the queen was very happy. She sent for her son and said, "We have found a real princess. Only a real princess could feel a small dry pea through 20 feather beds. If she will have you, you may marry her, and feel sure you have married a real princess." The prince at once asked the little princess to be his wife, and when she said yes, a great wedding feast was made ready. People came from far and near to see the wedding of the prince and the princess, who was so gentle and fine that she could feel a small dry pea through 20 feather beds. The princess and the pea. Take care, everybody.